up, guys? Welcome back to Life on the Wrist. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are staying safe with the coronavirus, COVID-19 that's going around right now. Hope you're staying 6 feet away from people and washing your hands as much as you possibly can. When this video releases, hopefully there's better news about perhaps a treatment or a vaccination, a better treatment or a vaccination for it. So who knows? But what I thought I would discuss today is obviously this COVID-19 has had a huge impact on watches and the purchase of watches and watch exports. If you haven't seen some of our videos our series where we discuss the Swiss watch export numbers that come out every month, we made one for the month of February, and then one as positive as the past 2019 was. I'm sure the March results are probably not as great, and not great either. So if you haven't seen those, be sure to check those out. But I think this is really going to have an effect on general watch pricing, and I thought I would give you an idea of what we think watch prices can do this year because of this this virus that's gone around that really has impacted global economies. So that's going to be the topic for today. I'll discuss the focus of this is probably going to be on modern watches, but I'll try to give a little bit of I'll try to throw in a couple thoughts on what I think the vintage watch market's going to end up doing. I think it will we'll try and have an even amount, especially because I know a lot of our viewers are vintage watch lovers. So that's going to be the topic for today. But before we get into that, be sure to smash the like button for us and let us know in the comments when you've done that, and also what you think the prices of watches are going to end up doing. Also, right by that like button is the subscribe button, so be sure to hit that as well. So looking at how I can look at this, I saw really what spurred me on to make this video is I was on Instagram and I saw a couple of pictures. Actually, they were literally one after another, where it gave it was a picture of a bunch of modern Rolexes, and it showed the prices 3 months ago and then the prices now, and it had arrows for if it went up or down. And for the Rolex picture, it actually had every single one of them was down by about $1,000. And then when I scrolled again, it came to this Patek Philippe picture, and it actually showed that Nautilus prices had gone up. And I'll see if I can find them to put them over on top of this video so you can see them. But I thought this was interesting because it's, first off, I wonder how these pictures were created. I didn't really look at the sources for the information that they put on these pictures, so I don't know. But it got me thinking about what prices will do this year, especially because of the impact of this coronavirus. So what I thought I would do is look at why prices would go up, why prices would go down, and then I'll give you my thoughts at the end of towards the end of the video. So the obvious one is prices are going to go down. It's kind of been known that we've entered a economic recession this year. With people being in a recession, or what kind of led us into a recession, is people are actually they've been laid off or furloughed from their jobs, so they have a lot less income. Just to give you an idea, over 3 million individuals filed for unemployment last month. That was a new economic indicator that was released recently, which is actually a record high and those numbers are for the US, by the way. That's a record high for unemployment numbers. And so with people being laid off or furloughed, they're not going to have as much money to actually spend on anything except for essentials. So being in an economic recession is one of the things that could perhaps cause watch prices to go down. Another thing that we can look to when making this argument is look at the export results. So if you didn't see our video where we discussed Swiss watch exports for February, if you look at the exports were down by about 9%. And if you look at exports by price category, you can see that total value of these exports actually went down by 8.7%. This is a strong indicator that modern watches are obviously losing value. Because we're kind of entering a little downturn in economically, people aren't spending a lot of money on watches, which means exports are not going to increase because companies are not needing to buy supply for their watch stores. So I think this is the fact that we're entering a recession, and the fact that export numbers have not been very favorable when it comes to value as well as units exported. I think those are both really good indicators that Swiss watch values are going to end up going down. People are just not going to be able to buy them. If people aren't going to buy them, watch companies are going to have to sell them at discounts. It basically comes down to a supply and demand game. There's a way that you can look at this from a point of view where watch prices will actually increase. So, and this kind of, the theme with this side of the argument is looking at the idea of scarcity. So there are specific models of watches that are extremely desired by collectors. Just to name a few, Audemars Piguet, the Royal Oak, the Nautilus, Rolex of Mariner, you could say to an extent, is one of these. So, and so there are many desired pieces that are already relatively scarce, and you can buy secondhand for a lot more than what they sell for at retail. Along with that idea, there are manufacturers that have actually announced closures to their manufacturing. To name a few, Audemars Piguet, Patek Philippe, Hublot and Rolex are all companies that have announced that they closed down their manufacturing facilities for the time being. If you look at this is partly driven by the fact that the Swiss government ended up declaring a state of emergency from March 16th to April 19th, and they were just falling in line with what their government believes, and also doing their part to ensure that the COVID-19 curve is flattened. But if these manufacturers are closing down and they actually supply a lot of the very highly desired watches that people are trying to get their hands on, one could say that these desired watches are not being produced, and but there's still a remaining high demand for these watches. If you look at from the demand side, people are still wanting these models because they are so desired. But if you look at from the supply side, supply is obviously going to be decreasing because manufacturers are not going to be producing them. So like I said, when I spoke about the idea of the watch prices going down, this really does come down to the idea of supply and demand. So just moving into my opinion, I think there's two ways. There's a couple ways that you can look at. I'll speak to it first on the supply side, what I think is going to happen. So there's two ways that you can look at the supply side. First, there's a manufacturing slowdown. Manufacturing slowdown means there's going to be less supply on the market for watches that people really, really desire. I think this has, if there's a manufacturing slowdown, I think this leads into the idea that prices will go up. I think this statement only applies to watches that are extremely desired by collectors, and there is longevity to that desire. So I think the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak has been an extremely desired watch just in general. It's very hard to get your hands on it, and I think watches like the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak could go up. When you look at the supply side, on the other hand, people's need for cash is going to increase. With people losing their jobs, they're going to need to free up cash flow for themselves in order for them to just live, basically. So what you could end up seeing is a flood of watches coming to the market at relatively low prices by collectors who want to free up some cash flow for themselves to be able to live. So you could end up seeing the supply increase hugely because of this rush for cash, and this would end up decreasing the prices of these watches. Simple supply graph. If you're not really familiar with it, if there's huge supply, the average price is going to be a lot lower. So that's from the supply side. If you look at the demand side, I think there's only really two ways to look at the demand side too. Demand could remain the same, and this means that demand for those specifically desired watches will remain the same. The other way to look at that is demand could decrease due to the fact that people actually have less cash. I am going to err on the side that demand is probably going to decrease. It's going to decrease for the vast majority of watches. It might remain the same for watches that are extremely desired, like the Nautilus, like the Royal Oak, which means price is probably going to remain the same, or might go up for those specific watches. It will probably decrease for the vast majority of watches because people are just not going to be able to buy watches. I said that I would mention vintage watches, and about, I want to say a year ago, I made a video where I discussed how the demand for vintage watches has slowly been decreasing, and I think this has to do with the fact that people had the vintage watches that they wanted, and I think this is a time where where people are going to end up they're going to start to sell their watches because they need to free up cash. And I think this is where prices are going to slowly decrease and correct, like I mentioned in that video. You'll probably see in the side panel where I talked about, is there going to be a vintage watch market crash? I don't think it's really going to be a crash. I think it's just going to be a correction in pricing, and it'll align prices with a little bit more of a realistic view on how much they're actually worth. Unfortunately, the supply is fixed. the supply of, or the overall supply of vintage watches is fixed. The supply on the market is probably going to increase and slowly decrease the prices, but there isn't a manufacturer of vintage watches, if that makes sense. So I think vintage watches will have a correction. For the vast majority of modern watches, I think there's going to be a slowdown in purchases. Historically, that's always what's happened. So that's kind of what we expect to come when it comes to watch prices. So will they go up, will they go down? I think the vast majority will go down, but there are arguments to say that some specific watches may go up in value. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about watch prices. Will they go up, will they go down? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Also, if you didn't do it in the beginning of the video, be sure to smash the like button for this video and subscribe to the channel. And with that said, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time.